Well, it was really all about the challenges to the entire value chain of producing plant products in agriculture, seeds, grains, oilseeds, pulses, and other agri-bulks, and then some selected solutions to those challenges, ways to seize the opportunities that are out there. So I described what many people are well aware of as growing populations and demand around the world, and then moved into really what does it take to provide for a responsive, resilient, responsible supply chain that works at the top end of the value chain, high value products, as well as these basic raw materials that are used for food, feed, energy production that are produced from plants. And there are a lot of challenges out there, a lot of opportunities. At the very foundation is a whole new world of the ability to meet those demands because of the deployment of technology that in itself represents some challenges, and communication, sort of connectivity around the world. So we can address the opportunity, which is part of the challenges are embedded in the opportunity because we're more enabled to do so. And it's really the nexus of political, or what I call official practice, the political world, the government world, with the commercial practices, things like contracts and best practices in the commercial world, as well as regulation and best practices with governments. The real opportunity to substantially leap forward and to gain and seize some of the opportunities to meet the challenges of increased need for flow of product is what I try to discuss, at least in a few sort of highlighted areas. Certainly didn't cover everything in 15 minutes because it's a big world, and the politics of grain and oil seeds and agri-bulk movements are a big deal. Today, somewhere around 350 to 400 million metric tons moves one way or another, containerized shipments, break bulk, bags, and bulk shipments, bulk being about 90% of it around the world. Tomorrow it'll be 600 million metric tons in just 15 years. That's a big challenge. The production capacity is probably there because of technology. Really, it's the barriers that exist. People have to have the ability to buy, so you need economic growth. We need to provide for safe and reliable, responsive supply chains to make that all work. In particular, in the U.S., we've led the world in innovation in agriculture. And I think I didn't get a chance to say this during the discussion, but we need to be proud of the fact that modern agricultural practices are so effective in the United States. That has resulted in a safe, reliable, responsive, and responsible supply chain coming from the United States, unprecedented in the world. Other countries are figuring that out. To the point where we start to understand the importance of certain concepts and solutions, things like fungibility, the substitutability of product from places that may have a surplus one year but may have a drought the next year, et cetera. We start to understand better the dynamics of the value chain or the logistics that are dependent upon certain transportation corridors. We're starting to understand better the limits of agronomy, and that not just tied to the weather, but also tied to plant breeding innovation, tied to precision agriculture. A lot of these things, of course, the U.S. farmer leads in the world. And it's really modern agricultural practices that have allowed us to be so responsive in the plant world. And then there's a whole new set of new challenges out there, shifting diets that we need to respond to. But the response won't be effectively met unless we deploy some of the new techniques, the new technologies, and really the communication that's available to us, the ability to connect around the world with consumer needs as well as the ability to supply. So I think, in particular, the The example of modern agriculture, the deployment of modern agricultural practices in the United States, it really starts with our land grant college system and everything that we have invested policies, production-driven policies for 50 years now, puts us in a good position, but it also puts the world in a good position to take advantage of all kinds of attributes that are available to agriculture and the plant production world to not only feed animals but feed people directly, that can meet the challenge of 9 billion people in 2040 or 2050 or whenever that happens, can meet the challenge of improving diets at the low end of the 2 billion people that are in some degree stressed in their food consumption, can meet the challenge of needed conservation and management of water resources. We need to deploy everything that I would characterize as being wrapped up in modern agricultural practices that include facilitation of trade. And of course, that's where I focused on how to work with opportunities in trade, and even pointed out some of the real advancements that are kind of at hand. In the political world, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement and its regulatory coherence provisions that deploy a rapid response mechanism that allows the perishable products that are these agricultural products. They're not steel. These products do deteriorate over time, to move faster and move more efficiently through the system, despite barriers that may be erected in the name of safety or some other concern by an importing government. So there are real opportunities emerging. It's a chance to seize it. There's significant global opportunity. Positioning themselves well will be determined by the ability to tie themselves to solutions. Sometimes they're short-term solutions in the logistics world, where what is the most efficient way to move the product I'm producing today. But on the other hand, there's long-term solutions. Produce the right product for the market in the long term. Overall opportunity is really outstanding. Investment is flowing into food and food supplies around the world. So the demand side is there. There are political barriers. There are everything from short-term concerns about our current political mentality in the United States to the challenges that Brexit brings and the challenges of all the changes that are occurring in China, et cetera, et cetera. There's a big world out there. But we're well positioned, and we need to competently deploy technology and technique that are available to us, and really rely on all of the advantages we have in the marketplace today, as well as new opportunities to build a solid business plan. The pull that is coming from the underlying global demand, that is the opportunity. It's not just more people and growing economies, but it's also diversification of diets and change in consumption patterns really should drive the business planning of farmers. And that means, they're dealing with a limited resource. There's only so much land. And there's even more and more, there's only so much water. And when we're talking about producing grain, in many ways we're moving water from points of surplus to points of deficit, if you really think about it at the end of the day. And the way we do that is on a scarce resource that is the land. So that scarcity of the input side of things, and something that's consumable for human beings that results, even in the energy sector, is an important opportunity to seize. So I think it's really the world is ripe for reliable, responsive, responsible supply of grains, oilseeds, pulses, and other agri-bulks. And it will happen. no country, including the United States, will end up being totally self-sufficient. Food and economic security will be driven by our ability to properly manage the limited resource that is soil and the limited resources of water available to be placed on the soil to grow plants. And a lot of technologies out there, a lot of promises out there that can be deployed, but overall, more people expecting better food, safer food is a real opportunity.